Amara Bennett was a young black woman with nothing but a strong will to survive. Each morning she rose before the sun, washed up using cold water from a leaking tap, and put on her faded orange uniform with the name tag that read, Amara. Attendant. She worked at Midtown City Mall in Atlanta, one of the busiest places in the city. From the outside, she looked like every other employee, smiling, polite, always ready to help. But behind that smile was a quiet storm. Amara had lost both her parents just a year ago in a car crash. Since then, she had no one. No siblings, no family to lean on. Just her and a small room in a run-down neighborhood where the ceiling creaked and rain slipped through the cracks. She once had dreams. A big one. Just the year before, she was a second-year student studying to become a nurse at Atlanta City College. She loved caring for others. It gave her purpose. But after her parents passed, everything crumbled. She couldn't afford tuition, books, or even daily meals. She had to drop out and survive however she could. Her first job was selling peaches by the roadside. Then she washed clothes for people. Now she worked in the mall arranging products and answering customer questions. She never complained. She kept her pain tucked away beneath that bright smile. During her short lunch break, Amara would sit alone behind the mall, holding a bottle of water she rarely drank. Her thoughts wandered back to school, to the life she lost. One day, she whispered under her breath, I really tried. Her voice cracked, but she quickly wiped her eyes and stood up. Her break was over. She stepped back into the mall, lifting her shoulders, adjusting her badge, and wearing that same quiet, radiant smile. No one knew the weight she carried. And still, every day, she kept going. Because deep down, Amara still believed in something better. Jalen Ford sat in a leather chair inside the same office his late father once occupied for over 3 decades. It was a spacious, elegant room at the top floor of the Ford Enterprises building. A cool breeze drifted through the open window. At just 33, Jalen was now the CEO, a quiet, composed billionaire running one of the most successful black-owned investment firms in the South. It wasn't a role he planned for. He inherited it after his father, Jonathan Ford, passed away unexpectedly. But his father had left more than a company. He'd left wisdom. Keep your life quiet, son, Jonathan always said. The less they know, the safer you are. And Jalen lived by those words. Though worth hundreds of millions, he never flaunted it. He dressed in simple black suits, drove himself around in regular cars, and rarely made public appearances. He was respected, not for loud headlines, but for his brilliance, humility, and privacy. At home, the mansion was peaceful, especially with his mother, Miss Evelyn Ford, still living there. She was a regal black woman in her 60s, known for her wisdom, calm spirit, and deep faith. She'd been the strength of the Ford family during her husband's illness and after his passing. One quiet evening, Evelyn sat on a cream-colored couch in the living room, sipping a glass of pomegranate juice. The golden light from the chandelier washed over the room's artful decor. Jalen walked in, phone in hand. "Evening, Mom," he said with a soft grin. Evelyn looked up, shook her head with a knowing smile. "Sit down, Jalen. We need to talk." He eased down beside her, already guessing what she wanted to say. "You're always working, always talking about strategy, meetings, mergers. But what about your life, baby? When will you bring home someone I can call daughter?" Jalen chuckled. "Mom, I'm trying. It's just not easy finding someone real." She placed her cup gently on the glass table. "You're not a boy anymore. I want to see you smile with someone by your side. I want to hold my grandbabies." "I know," Jalen nodded. "And I promise I'm not rushing, but I won't settle either." Evelyn studied him closely. "Just make sure the woman you choose has a kind heart. That's all I want." Jalen leaned back, smiling faintly. But deep down he wondered how he could ever know who loved him. Not the CEO, not the money, not the empire, but simply Jalen Ford. It was a hot afternoon in Midtown City Mall. The crowd moved like a tide, parents with strollers, young people, in designer sneakers, elders in Sunday hats, even though it was just a Tuesday. The smell of fresh popcorn mixed with the sound of chatter and footsteps. Amara was near the cooking oil aisle, fixing misplaced items on the shelf. Her hands were quick, her mind focused. Then she heard a commotion coming from the checkout lane. A tired-looking elderly black woman in a plain cotton dress and worn-out slippers was at the counter. She looked flustered. In her hand was a single small bottle of cooking oil. "Please, I'm in a bit of a hurry," the woman said gently. "The clouds are moving fast and I need to get home before the rain." The cashier, a young girl with long lashes and chewing gum popping from her mouth, narrowed her eyes. "Okay, madam, but where's your money?" The woman froze. She patted her dress pockets, then her purse. Her face fell. "Oh no," she said, softly. "I must have left my wallet at home. I'm so sorry. Let me rush back and get it." "Wait, what?" the cashier snapped. "You came here with no money, and you're holding up my line?" Heads turned. A few customers began to whisper. Some smirked. No one stepped forward. "I didn't mean to forget," the old woman whispered. "I just needed one thing for supper." "Lady, this ain't a charity. Get out the way if you can't pay," the cashier barked. That was the moment Amara stepped forward. She moved with purpose, her voice calm but steady. "Excuse me, what's going on?" The cashier rolled her eyes. "This woman doesn't have a dime and wants to buy oil. Says she forgot her purse." Amara turned to the woman. "Ma'am, is that true?" The old woman nodded, eyes now lowered. "Yes, sweetheart, I'm truly sorry." Amara didn't hesitate. She looked at the cashier and said, "Give her the oil. You can take it out of my salary." The cashier blinked. "Your what?" "My paycheck," Amara said, her voice unwavering. "It's just one bottle, I'll cover it." The old woman looked up slowly. Her lips parted in shock. Her eyes were full. "My child, thank you. God bless you." Amara smiled and gently placed the oil into the woman's shopping bag. "You're welcome, ma'am. Please get home safe." The woman was about to leave, but paused. "Wait," she said softly. Amara turned. "Why did you help me?" the woman asked, voice trembling. "You didn't even know me." Amara smiled again, this time with a softness that carried weight. "Because you needed help. That's all." The woman's eyes glistened. She reached out and touched Amara's arm. "What's your name?" "Amara," she replied. The woman repeated it slowly, as if memorizing it. "Amara. That's a beautiful name." "Mine is Evelyn." Amara smiled. "It's very nice to meet you, Miss Evelyn." Evelyn nodded, her voice tender. "You have a good heart. I won't forget what you did." As she turned and walked away, the sadness on her face had vanished. In its place was a warm, grateful smile. Amara stood still, watching her go. Something about this woman felt different. She didn't know it yet, but her life had just shifted. Evelyn Ford stepped into her mansion later that evening, still holding the small bottle of cooking oil. The walk from the mall hadn't been long, but her mind had traveled far. Her face was quiet, but her thoughts were racing. Jalen was seated in the living room, typing something on his laptop. The moment he looked up and saw his mother, he paused. "Mom? You okay?" he asked. "You look thoughtful." Evelyn walked in slowly and sat beside him on the cream velvet couch. She placed the oil bottle gently on her lap and exhaled deeply. "I went to Midtown Mall today," she began. "I just wanted to pick up a bottle of oil, but I forgot my card at home." Jalen raised an eyebrow, setting the laptop aside. "What happened?" "The cashier embarrassed me in front of everyone," Evelyn said, her voice composed but edged with pain. "She talked to me like I was nothing, like I was a beggar, and everyone just stood there. No one helped." Jalen's jaw clenched. "Which store was this?" She met his eyes. "The one your company just invested in." The air in the room changed. Jalen sat upright, his hands tightening. "They disrespected you at one of my properties?" "Evelyn, gently touched his arm. "Calm down, let me finish." He nodded, but the tension in his shoulders didn't ease. Evelyn continued. "While I stood there unsure what to do, a young woman stepped in. She was just a floor worker, but she came straight to the counter, asked what was going on, and when she heard my story, she paid for the oil with her own salary." Jalen blinked. "She what?" "She told the cashier to deduct it from her paycheck. Just like that. No hesitation. Like an angel." "What's her name?" Jalen asked, voice quieter now. "Amara. Amara Bennett." Jalen leaned back against the couch, staring up at the ceiling. His mind was moving fast, scanning every possibility. "She didn't know who you were?" "No, she had no idea." Evelyn smiled faintly. But her kindness was real. That girl saw an old woman being humiliated and stepped in with a heart full of grace. People like her are rare, Jalen. He stood up. His face was calm again, but inside something had already clicked. "You'll meet her again, Mom," he said. "I promise you that." Evelyn looked at him curiously. "What are you planning?" Jalen smiled without showing teeth. "First, I'm going to make sure that cashier never pulls a stunt like that again. And second, I'm going to find out who Amara really is." Evelyn's eyes softened. "Just don't go too far." "I won't," Jalen said. "But no one disrespects you, not while I'm alive." The room fell into a thoughtful silence. But within Jalen's heart, something powerful had begun to stir. This wasn't about business anymore. It was personal. Jalen sat alone in his home office, the lights dim, the room quiet except for the distant hum of the city beyond his window. In one hand he held his phone. In the other, the bottle of oil his mother had brought home. He stared at it, thinking about the girl his mother couldn't stop talking about, Amara Bennett. After a long moment, he tapped a number on his phone. The call went straight through. "Amma," he said, his voice low and deliberate. "I need your help." Amma Daniels was more than just a bodyguard. He was Jalen's most trusted friend, a man who had been by his side since college. Trained, loyal, and sharp-eyed. "Yes, boss, who's the target?" Amma asked on the other end. "Not a target," Jalen said. "A woman. Her name is Amara Bennett. She works at the Midtown City Mall, floor staff, third week on the job. She helped my mother today. I want to know everything about her." Discreetly, Amma didn't ask why. He never did. "Send me what you've got, I'll handle it." Within an hour, Jalen sent over a brief message. Amara Bennett, Midtown Mall, late 20s, dark skin, kind eyes, quiet demeanor, blue name tag. Amma read it twice and tucked it into his mind. The next morning, he arrived at the mall wearing a delivery shirt and cap. He stood across the parking lot with a disposable coffee cup in hand, watching, and there she was. Amara moved like the sun was in her chest, smiling at a customer, helping an elderly man push a cart, picking up a dropped toy for a toddler. She didn't notice the man in the shadows watching her every move. Over the next 2 days, Amma returned at different hours, sometimes morning, sometimes late afternoon. Each time, he blended in. Cleaning guy, lost shopper, someone waiting for an Uber. Every time Amara was the same, gentle, respectful, focused. Her coworkers praised her behind her back. "She's got the kindest soul in here," one said. "She's been through hell but never complains," said another. Amma followed, her home at a respectful distance. She lived in a cramped, aging building on a quiet street. She walked in alone every evening, no one waiting, no lights on, no laughter inside, just silence. He noted everything. 3 nights in, he returned to Jalen's mansion. "She's the real deal," Amma said, handing over a handwritten report. "Parents passed last year. No siblings, no criminal record, doesn't party, doesn't beg, works 6 days a week, lives alone. She's been surviving on nothing, and still finds ways to help others." Jalen took the paper and read every line like it was a confidential briefing. At the very bottom, Amma had written, "A rare heart in a hard world." Jalen closed the folder and placed it beside him. He leaned back in his chair, his fingers resting on his chin. She lost both parents, he murmured. Dropped out of school. Still smiles every day. He stood up and walked to the window. I lost one parent, he whispered to himself, and it nearly shattered me. But she lost everything. He turned back, eyes fixed on the report. Again. She didn't ask for help, she gave it, even when she had nothing. For the first time since he heard Amara's name, this wasn't about what she did for his mother anymore. It was about who she was. And Jalen Ford was determined to find out. The day after receiving Amma's report, Jalen couldn't stop thinking about Amara. Her name echoed through his thoughts like music he hadn't realized he'd been waiting to hear. Every note, every detail in that file had moved him deeper than he expected. She was strength wrapped in softness, grace wrapped in grit. Later that evening, he found himself back in his home office, pacing slowly with the file still in his hand. His fingers traced the name on the cover, Amara Bennett. Beneath it, in Amma's handwriting, a rare heart in a hard world. He opened it again, reading every line for the third time. Father, deceased. Mother, deceased. No siblings. Dropped out of college. No record. No complaints. No support system. Lives in a single-room rental. Still employed. Still helpful. Still smiling. He shut the folder and sat at his desk. How? He whispered. How does someone go through that and stay kind? He didn't have an answer. But what he did have was clarity. This girl, this woman, had caught his mother's attention, disarmed a room with one act of goodness, and now lived in his mind without even knowing it. That night, Jalen wasn't thinking like a CEO. He wasn't even thinking like Evelyn Ford's son. He was thinking like a man who had just met someone stronger than himself, without even meeting her at all. Meanwhile, across the city, Amara was walking home under the fading light of dusk. Her steps were tired, her body sore, but her spirit still standing. Then a soft honk made her turn around. A sleek black car had pulled up beside her. Its window rolled down, revealing a familiar face, one she hadn't expected to see again. Was the woman from the mall, dressed elegantly this time, lips curved into a gentle smile. Amara's eyes widened in recognition. You, she said, a little breathless. You're the lady I helped. The car door opened. Yes, the woman replied warmly, stepping out. My name is Evelyn. I've been looking for you. Amara stood frozen. Looking for me? Yes, my dear. I went back to the mall and was told your shift had ended. I couldn't leave things the way they were. Would you come with me? Just for a short while? I'd really like to talk. Amara hesitated. She looked up and down the street, unsure. But something in Evelyn's eyes felt safe, motherly, trustworthy. After a moment, Amara nodded slowly. Okay. She stepped into the car, still unaware that she was walking straight into the next chapter of her life. The black car pulled up to the grand Ford estate, a mansion bathed in soft gold light and wrapped in lush greenery. Amara's eyes widened. As she stepped out, she had never been anywhere like this before. The gates alone looked more expensive than her entire apartment building. Evelyn gently placed a hand on her arm. Come on in, sweetheart. Don't be shy. Amara followed her inside. The living room smelled of jasmine and warm vanilla. The soft carpet cushioned every step. Elegant paintings lined the walls. Amara had never seen such peace and luxury exist in one place. They sat together on a plush cream couch. Evelyn looked at her with calm eyes, her voice gentle. That day at the mall, she began, I was just trying to get one small bottle of oil. Our cook had gone on her annual leave, and I thought I'd run a simple errand myself. She smiled, faintly. But when I got to the counter, I realized I'd forgotten my card. And when the cashier started raising her voice, I felt so ashamed. Everyone just stared. Amara looked down quietly, remembering the moment. But then you came, Evelyn said, reaching out and placing her hand over Amara's. You didn't ask questions. You didn't look away. You stepped up and helped. Amara's voice was soft. I didn't think it was anything big, ma'am. I just didn't want you to be embarrassed like that. Evelyn nodded. To you, it may have been small, but to me it meant everything. There was a pause. Then Evelyn stood and walked over to a side table, opening a drawer. She returned with a small brown envelope and a velvet box. I know you didn't do it expecting anything, she said, but I want you to accept this. She handed both items to Amara. Inside the envelope was a neat bundle of cash. In the box, a delicate gold chain and a bracelet, both vintage and elegant. These pieces belonged to me when I was your age, Evelyn said. They mean a lot to me, but I want you to have them. Amara's eyes filled with tears. She looked at the jewelry, then at Evelyn, then slowly pushed them back. No, ma'am, she said softly. I didn't help you because I wanted anything in return. I helped because it was the right thing to do. I've been in your shoes before, maybe not with oil, but with needing help, and no one stepping up. Evelyn's hand tightened gently around hers. Her eyes shimmered. You're different, Amara. Very different. Just then, from across the hall, footsteps approached. Jalen Ford stepped into the room. He had been watching, listening. Now he entered fully, silent, but certain. Evelyn turned, smiling with pride. Jalen, this is the young woman I told you about. Amara turned to look and froze. Her mouth parted slightly. Her heart jumped. She knew that face. She had seen it in newspapers, on TV. The calm, private face of the youngest black CEO in Atlanta. Good. Evening, sir, she said quickly, standing up, hands nervously clasped. Jalen smiled faintly. So you're Amara. She nodded, unsure what to say. I saw what you just did, he said. Why did you turn down my mother's gift? Amara hesitated, then answered quietly. Because kindness isn't supposed to be bought, sir. I helped because someone needed help. That's all. Jalen looked at her, not like a CEO, but like a man seeing something unexpected, something real. She didn't ask for help, Evelyn said softly, but she gave it anyway. Jalen nodded slowly. Well then, I think it's time we gave you something back. Amara stood in the warm light of the Ford mansion's living room, her posture respectful but unsure. She'd just declined a bundle of cash and heirloom jewelry, and now the billionaire son of the woman she helped was staring at her, not with suspicion, but with admiration. Jalen's voice was steady. You helped my mother on one of her worst days. Now it's our turn to help you on your best. Amara's eyes shifted from Jalen to Evelyn, her throat tightening. Sir, I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything right now, Jalen replied. Just listen. He walked to a small desk near the window and returned with a document folder. Sitting down across from her, he opened it and slid it toward her slowly. I want to offer you a job, he said. Come work with me directly. I need a new executive assistant at the company's headquarters. It's not just a title. It comes with a private staff apartment, benefits, and a strong salary, and most of all, a future. Amara stared at the folder. Her fingers barely twitched. She blinked twice, unsure if she'd heard correctly. A job? She whispered. Jalen nodded. Yes, a real one. Full-time. Full respect. But instead of joy, a shadow crossed Amara's face. Her shoulders fell slightly, her voice more hesitant. I didn't finish school, she confessed. After my parents died, I had to drop out. I don't have any credentials. I'm not sure I'm even qualified for something like this. Jalen leaned forward, voice gentle but firm. That's already handled. You'll go through a short training program with our internal team. And I've already arranged for you to enroll in an online university. You can continue your studies, your way, on your schedule. Amara's eyes filled with tears. You'd do that for me? He nodded. You've earned it more than you know. Amara opened her mouth to speak, but the words didn't come. For a moment, She just placed her hand on her chest and nodded slowly, as tears rolled down silently. "Thank you, sir," she said finally. "Thank you, ma'am." Evelyn stood and wrapped her in a warm, motherly hug. "Welcome to the family, baby." Jalen smiled and offered his hand. Amara took it. His grip was steady and warm. What she didn't know was that behind that professional offer was a heart beginning to feel something deeper than gratitude. This wasn't just the start of a career. It was the beginning of something none of them had seen coming. From the very first day Amara stepped into Ford Enterprises headquarters as Jalen's assistant, the atmosphere shifted. She arrived early every morning, always dressed neat and modest, her braids pulled back in a simple bun, her eyes alert and ready. She walked with quiet confidence, holding her notepad close, her movements smooth and purposeful. Jalen noticed immediately. She was efficient. She was organized. She was unshakably calm, even during meetings with high-profile investors and board members. When someone forgot a schedule, Amara remembered. When a client had a specific preference, she had already prepared for it. She moved, like she had studied the role for years. Jalen found himself watching her more than he should. He noticed how she carried herself, the way she spoke gently but firmly, how she stayed after hours to catch up on tasks, then went home only to attend her online university lectures, her books tucked into a second-hand laptop. He hadn't asked her to do any of that. She just did it. And somewhere between those small observations, something inside Jalen shifted. He started passing by her desk more often, sometimes with no real reason. He'd pause to ask how her day was, or if she needed help with anything. One day, he even asked her the same question twice, within the same hour. That evening, after a long executive meeting, Amara walked into his office to hand over a report. She turned to leave, but he stopped her. "Amara," he said, standing behind his desk. She turned. "Yes, sir?" He gestured to the chair across from him. "Can I ask you something?" She hesitated, then nodded and sat down. Jalen studied her, quietly before speaking. "You've only been here a few weeks, but you work like someone who's been in the game for years. How?" Amara smiled faintly, lowering her eyes for a moment before answering. "I had no choice," she said. "After my parents died, I had to grow up fast. I took every job I could find: laundry, cashier, street vending. Every place I worked taught me something. I paid attention. I listened. I learned." Jalen leaned in, completely focused. She continued, "And I told myself if I ever get a chance to work in a place like this, I'd give it everything I had." There was a moment of silence between them. Then Jalen nodded slowly. "You're doing more than giving it your all," he said. "You're remarkable." Amara looked down shyly. "Thank you, sir," Jalen smiled. But behind that smile was something deeper, an emotion he wasn't quite ready to name. Because now this wasn't just about her story, or her struggle, or her strength. This was about her. Evelyn Ford sat quietly in the sunroom with a warm cup of ginger tea resting between her palms. The TV was on in the background, some quiet gospel program playing, but she wasn't watching. She was thinking about Amara. Over the past few weeks, Evelyn had noticed something in her son. Something soft, subtle, but undeniable. Whenever Amara visited the house to drop off a file or deliver a message, Jalen's whole presence would change. His shoulders relaxed. His voice lowered. His eyes followed her a little longer than necessary. And Evelyn had seen that look before. It was the same look her late husband gave her when he first realized he was in love. That quiet, reverent gaze that said, "You're home." That evening after dinner, Evelyn made her way to Jalen's room. She knocked once. "Come in," he called out. Jalen was seated on the edge of his bed, laptop open, reviewing a proposal. When he looked up and saw her, he smiled. "Hey, Mom, everything okay?" Evelyn didn't answer right away. She walked in and sat beside him, her hand resting gently on his shoulder. "Jalen," she said softly, "can I ask you something personal?" He closed his laptop and turned toward her. "Of course." She looked at him closely, her voice both calm and direct. "What's going on between you and Amara?" Jalen blinked. He opened his mouth, then hesitated. There was no use pretending. "You've been watching, huh?" he said with a small smile. "I'm your mother," she said simply. "I don't miss much." Jalen looked down at his hands. "I don't know what it is yet, Mom, but I like her, more than I expected to." Evelyn nodded slowly, her face thoughtful. "And why do you think that is?" He paused before answering. "Because she's real. She's humble. She doesn't try to impress anyone. She works harder than people with 5 times her comfort, and she's never once asked me for anything." Evelyn smiled gently. "That's because Amara is built from something solid, something money can't touch." Jalen looked up, eyes serious. "Now, do you think she'd ever feel the same?" "You'll never know," Evelyn said, standing slowly, "unless you speak your truth." She walked to the door, then turned back to him with a small, knowing smile. "A woman like Amara is rare, son. Don't let fear make you hesitate. My greatest peace would be seeing you marry a good woman, not a perfect one, just one with a good heart." Then she was gone, leaving the room in silence and Jalen with a heart full of questions and quiet resolve. He sat for a long time staring at the closed door, and deep inside he knew he couldn't keep quiet much longer. It was early morning when Amara arrived at the Ford estate. A crisp manila envelope clutched tightly in her hand. It contained a report that required Jalen's signature before a major business presentation. It was urgent. It couldn't wait. The housekeeper opened the door and welcomed her in with a smile. As Amara stepped into the living room, she spotted Evelyn sitting peacefully on the couch, wearing a navy blue house robe, her hair wrapped neatly, a Bible resting beside her untouched. "Good morning, ma'am," Amara greeted politely. Evelyn looked up and smiled warmly. "Good morning, my dear. Come, have a seat with me." Amara hesitated, unsure. "I was actually just here to drop this off for Mr. Ford." "You will," Evelyn nodded. "But first, sit with me for a moment." There was something in her voice, a gentleness, but also a seriousness that made Amara obey without question. She sat beside her on the cream-colored couch, envelope still in hand. Evelyn turned toward her eyes soft but deep. "Amara," she began slowly, "you've been coming here for a while now, and every time you walk through that door, I feel peace." Amara blinked, caught off guard. "Ma'am?" "You don't talk much," Evelyn continued. "You dress with respect, you move with purpose, and you carry yourself with dignity. That's rare in this world." Amara lowered her eyes, unsure what to say. "I'm not going to waste your time," Evelyn said, folding her hands on her lap. "I want to ask you something, and I want your honest answer." Amara sat up straighter. "Yes, ma'am." Evelyn inhaled deeply. "Would you ever consider marrying my son?" The words landed like thunder in Amara's chest. She blinked. Once, twice. Her voice came out like a whisper. "Ma'am, did I hear you right?" Evelyn smiled gently. "You did." Amara clutched the envelope tighter. Her heart thudded in her chest. I don't know what to say. This is unexpected." "I know." Evelyn nodded. "And I'm not pressuring you. I just wanted to know if the thought ever crossed your mind." Amara looked down, her thoughts spinning. She'd never allowed herself to think that far. Not seriously. She was just an assistant, a girl from the other side of the city. Jalen was her boss. And more than that, he was someone the whole world watched. "I'm not sure I'm good enough for him," Amara said quietly. Evelyn reached out and touched her hand gently. "Don't say that. You have something that money, education, or beauty can't buy. You have heart. You gave my son something he's been missing for years. Don't underestimate your worth." Amara's eyes welled, but she blinked back the "Here's. I'll think about it," she whispered. "I promise." Evelyn smiled. "That's all I ask, baby. Just think about it." Amara nodded. Then she stood, still holding the envelope, and walked slowly toward Jalen's room, her heart now full of questions she had never dared ask herself. Weeks passed. Amara sat alone in her office one afternoon, her fingers resting on the keyboard, but the screen hadn't changed in minutes. A document was open, half-typed, but her thoughts were far from business. She leaned back slowly, her gaze drifting to the large office window. She wasn't thinking about quarterly reports or upcoming meetings. She was thinking about Jalen. She had tried to fight the thoughts, push them away every time they surfaced, but now they rose like quiet waves. Could she really marry a man like him? She admired him, his calm, his strength, the way he spoke with respect to everyone, from the boardroom to the janitor. He never acted like someone born into wealth. He treated her like she belonged, but then the doubt crept in again. She sighed softly, whispering to herself, "Amara, stop dreaming. He's your boss, a billionaire. Why would someone like him look your way?" Just then, a soft voice interrupted her thoughts. "You talk to yourself now?" Jalen's smooth tone came from the doorway. Startled, Amara turned. He was standing there, smiling gently, a file in his hand. "You scared me," she said, laughing, nervously. "My bad." He grinned. "Didn't mean to sneak up." He walked in, placing the file on her desk. "Thanks," she said, taking it. But he didn't leave. He stood there for a moment, then scratched the back of his head, chuckling, quietly. "It's Friday," he said. "Got any plans tonight?" Amara blinked, surprised. Not really." Jalen smiled. "Good, because I was hoping we could grab a drink. Nothing serious, just relax, get away from emails for a few hours." She hesitated for a second, then smiled shyly. "As long as you don't start talking about finance over the wine, I think I'm safe." He laughed. "Deal." That evening, they sat in a warm, softly lit restaurant near the edge of town. Jazz played quietly in the background. The windows fogged slightly from the cool night air. Jalen had chosen a small table by the glass, with a view of the lights glittering across the city skyline. Amara looked around, wide-eyed. "This place is beautiful. I've never been somewhere like this." Jalen poured her a glass of wine. "You deserve more than this," he said quietly. They talked. They laughed. For the first time, Amara saw him without the weight of the company on his shoulders. And Jalen? He saw a woman whose light shined brighter than anything money could ever buy. Later, as dessert was cleared from the table, Jalen looked at her, his voice lower now. "Amara, I know this may sound fast, but I like you. I've been thinking about this for a while." Amara froze slightly, her hand paused near her glass. "I didn't want to rush you," he added, "but I couldn't hold it anymore. I want to be more than just your boss." Her eyes slowly lifted to meet his. She smiled softly, but there was emotion in her gaze. "I like you too, Jalen," she whispered. He smiled, but she raised a hand gently, stopping him. "You saw something in me when I didn't even see it in myself," she said. "You gave me this job, you enrolled me back in school. You didn't have to, but you did." She paused, her voice trembling slightly. "That touched me deeply. But that's not why I like you." Jalen leaned in, listening. "I like you because you're kind, humble. You treat people like they matter, even with all your success. You never forgot how to be human." There was a beat of silence between them. "Jalen," she said, "I want to finish my degree. That means 2 more years of study. Before I think about children or settling into any permanent role as a wife, I need to finish what I started." Jalen didn't blink. He nodded with quiet strength. "I understand," he said, "and I support you. You've worked too hard to let anything stop you now." A wave of relief crossed her face, but then she added with a small, playful smile, "That doesn't mean we can't get married now, right?" Jalen laughed, his head tilting back. "Of course not. Just don't expect me to help with those online exams." Amara chuckled, raising her glass. "No promises, you might regret saying that." They clinked glasses. That night, something real was born. Not just love, but deep understanding. When they returned home that night, the house was quiet. the kind of stillness that wrapped around them like peace. Jalen parked the car in the driveway and quickly stepped out to open the door for Amara. She smiled, touched by the simple act. As they walked through the front door, soft lights glowed in the living room. Evelyn was curled up on the couch with a bowl of fresh-cut mangoes in her lap, and the television humming quietly in the background. She looked up when she heard the door. Her eyes lit up the moment she saw the two of them together. "Good evening, Ma," Amara greeted sweetly. "Evening, baby," Evelyn said, smiling wide. "How was y'all's night out?" Jalen stepped forward, his expression soft but serious. "Mom," he said, "we have something to share." Evelyn sat up a little straighter, the mango bowl resting on her knees. "Yes?" she asked, already sensing something was coming. Jalen reached for Amara's hand. "She said yes," he said gently. Evelyn blinked. "She said yes?" Jalen smiled. "Amara agreed to marry me." There was a moment of stillness, a heartbeat. Then Evelyn leapt to her feet. "Jesus is Lord," she shouted, her voice full of joy. "You mean it? You really mean it?" Jalen and Amara both nodded. Evelyn rushed over and hugged Amara tightly, rocking her back and forth. "Thank you, God. Thank you." Then she turned to her son and wrapped her arms around him too. "You chose well, baby. This girl is pure gold. Pure." Amara laughed through happy tears, her face buried in Evelyn's shoulder. Her heart had never felt so full. She was no longer just a helper, a girl from the edges of the city. She was family now. "We have to celebrate." Evelyn clapped her hands like a child. "I'll call the chef to cook something quick but fancy. This house must smell like joy tonight." Jalen grinned. "Or, how about we take you out instead? No cooking tonight, Mom. Just joy." Evelyn beamed. "Even better. Let me go change. I need to look like somebody's proud mama." Later that night, the three of them sat in a cozy restaurant, laughter flowing as easily as the music. Evelyn shared stories about Jalen's childhood, and Amara blushed at his awkward teenage photos. The table was filled with food, but Amara's heart felt fuller than anything she had ever tasted. She looked across at Jalen and Evelyn, both smiling at her like she had always been theirs. In that moment, she knew. This was home. This was the beginning of a new chapter, one built on kindness, love, and a future she had never dared to imagine. The days that followed were filled with gentle joy. There were no lavish parties, no press releases, no diamond-studded headlines, just the steady unfolding of a bond that had been built quietly, in respect, in shared struggle, and in the beauty of small, selfless choices. Amara moved into her new role effortlessly, not just as Jalen's assistant, but as his partner. She remained focused on her education, attending her online classes every night after work, her notebook always open, her mind always reaching for more. Jalen admired her even more with each passing day. He would catch her reading medical textbooks during lunch breaks or solving complex assignments between meetings. She wasn't just trying to rise, she was determined to fly. And yet, even as their engagement became known to close friends and family, Amara's humility never changed. She still greeted the janitors by name. She still packed extra lunch some days for the security guards. She still said thank you like it was a prayer. One afternoon, as Jalen watched her across the conference table, head down, taking notes, her braids falling over her shoulder, he realized something deeper. He didn't just love Amara because of who she was to him, he loved her because of who she was to everyone. She hadn't let pain harden her. She hadn't let poverty define her. She hadn't let loss make her bitter. Instead, she had chosen kindness. Every single time. Later that week, Jalen stood at the edge of the garden in the Ford estate, watching the sun set behind the trees. Amara joined him quietly, sliding her arm through his. "You good?" she asked, leaning into his shoulder. He looked down at her and smiled. "Better than good." She rested her head against him, silent for a moment. "Sometimes I wake up and wonder if this is all real," she said softly. Like I'm going to blink and be back in that one-room apartment, folding uniforms or selling oranges by the roadside. Jalen turned to her. It's real, Amara, because you built this life with who you are, not what you had. She smiled. You changed my mother's day with one simple act, he said. But you changed my life without even trying. Amara looked up at him, her eyes gentle and full. You didn't just offer me a job, Jalen, she said. You offered me dignity. You gave me room to grow. And most of all, you saw me when I thought I was invisible. They stood in silence for a moment, hand in hand, the air around them still and golden. This wasn't a love born of wealth. It was born of mutual recognition. Two souls who had survived in different ways, finding peace in each other's light. The wedding was intimate. No paparazzi, no luxury, headlines. Just a gathering of hearts who understood the quiet power of real love. Amara wore a gown sewn by a local designer. Simple, elegant, flowing like grace itself. Her natural curls were adorned with gold pins that sparkled in the sunlight. She walked down the aisle in a garden behind the Ford estate, where white roses lined every path, and a warm breeze kissed her skin. Jalen stood waiting under a flowered arch, dressed in a deep navy suit, his eyes never leaving hers. When their hands met, it felt like destiny had finally spoken aloud. Ms. Evelyn Ford, dressed in royal purple and wiping tears with a satin cloth, sat in the front row. Her joy overflowed like a mother who knew her family had become whole again. The vows were spoken, every person present could feel it. This union wasn't just about love. It was about healing. About what happens when two people broken in different ways come together and choose to build something unbreakable. After the ceremony, they didn't jet off to some exotic island. Instead, Amara and Jalen spent their first week of marriage volunteering quietly at a youth center in South Atlanta. They listened to stories, donated books, taught young girls how to believe in themselves. And when the kids asked Amara how she ended up with a billionaire husband, she smiled and simply said, "By helping someone when I had nothing to give but love." The story of Amara Bennett and Jalen Ford began with a bottle of cooking oil and a heart that refused to turn away. And it became a story people in their community would whisper about for years. A story mothers told their daughters when life felt unfair. A story young men remembered when they wondered if character still mattered, because it did, and it always will. This story teaches a truth the world forgets too easily. Kindness is never wasted. Humility never goes out of style. And the most valuable thing a person can offer is a good heart. Amara didn't need to be rich. She didn't need a degree. She didn't need a perfect past. All she needed was to stay true. And because she did, her whole world changed.